So rather than spending a lot of time in terms of actually understanding and carrying out tutorials or whatever, then you can get started in a far quicker and easier way. So real-world uses for Developer Kit, as you can see here, there's a number of different uses for Developer Kit. Like anywhere where you're looking to move, migrate data, then you may be looking for some sort of Developer Kit. And this is often done either hand code in software solutions, and as it's spread across companies or across the company, then usually there's different solutions depending on which area of the company you're in. So evidently developing the loaders connectors, it's a challenge. It's still a challenge today, and as data models and things grow in size and complexity, then the challenge is actually growing along with it. Some of the issues that we may face, evidently the complexity of the mappings. PPDM has 1,700 tables, all highly related, so there's a fair bit of work to do there in terms of shape-shifting to get the data in, handling the constraints. You may get staff changes. You may get changes to the models, so your source models come in and or out. All those have to be dealt with as you're going along. So let's just have a quick look at the hand coding solution and pick a few points out here. So evidently, if you're doing the hand coding option, then you're starting from scratch. You have got a blank sheet, which allows you a great deal of flexibility, but there's a lot of development to do. There's a lot of testing to do. Not only you having to develop and test your business logic, business rules to ensure that your data is actually technically correct and then physically moved correctly as well, but you've got to test that that software actually works and does the job it's meant to do. Again, with that kind of thing, you're often in the hands of the developers. It may be specific to certain developers. If it's a long project, then these developers may be reallocated if there's any delays, things like that. So there's a lot of issues there, as we can see from that list, that can arise with hand coding. If you look at out-of-the-box integrations software even, we also have issues with that. I mean, evidently, you don't always want the bells and whistles. A lot of software comes with many fine features that, at some point are useful, but they're not always useful throughout the whole process. Or maybe there's a lot that you don't need, and there's only a small section that actually have functionality that actually gives you benefit in terms of the task that you're carrying out. And again, you may not get quite so much customization and partnership with any vendors that are selling the software, so they may sell it you and let you get on with it. And perhaps in a lot of environments, it is far easier to have a partnership arrangement where you can work alongside people and progress far quicker in a team environment. So the requirements of the developer kit really are to have something that's actually functional and practical to get the job done far quicker. It's about working together, understanding the problem, and creating a solution and components for that solution that are going to work and work well for that particular customer. And again, that's what we're looking at in terms of creating the developer kit that's going to produce us far better results on time, to budget, and again, get that feedback back up to your stakeholders as quickly as possible. So for ETL solutions, we have our core product, which is Transformation Manager. And on top of that, we look at putting the value add, so the extra components that make up our developer kit. So it can be bespoke models, such as models for PPDM that are enhanced slightly to ensure that we get maximum reuse of various bits of business logic. For PPDM, for instance, in fact, all of the elements, I think, have particular columns that are common throughout. So making reuse of things like that can be done by having customized models. Adapters, again, for things like large files. We can have documentation specific, again, to PPDM that maybe have tutorials in that are specific to moving reference data. Again, we can provide template mappings, tutorials and training that are customized directly to what is being developed by yourselves, or it can be a customized GUI and deployment. So again, whether that's developed by the customer or developed in partnership or developed by us and provided as a component, then these are all options that we provide in terms of ETL's custom developer kit. And the result should be a robust developer kit that allows you efficient data movement, and that's the bottom line, really. So today's demonstration, let's move on and have a look at what we do and how we do it. So firstly, we're going to have a quick walk around the core TM products. We'll show an example of an EMP got to the PDM. We'll then have a look at a last to PPDM data loading. We'll have a look at some model packs. We'll have a look at the basic loader construction. We'll have a look at some documentation. And we'll also have a look at deployment options. So if I just swap over to Transformation Manager Designer. So here we can see, this is the main view you get of Transformation Manager Designer. And again, you can see, as we were saying, it starts out as a blank sheet. So if we have a quick walk around this blank sheet, we can see that we have, on the left-hand side here, we have a projects pane, where we can create projects. Below that, we have models, so we can actually load models in. And in this case, we can use those models in any project that we create. At the bottom here, we have procedures, and this allows us to have reuse of various bits of mapping logic, so we can reuse them time and time again within different projects or different places within the same project. And the center pane here is where we're going to see our models, where we're going to define our business logic, and actually define how we're going to migrate the data. So let's have a look. How could we start off? Well, firstly, we do need to create a repository. So if I click here and create a new repository and click OK. So again, I've now got a new repository. You can see I've got one model in there called TM error, which allows us to report all our errors out in a particular way, and we can report these out to a database, flat file, various other formats. But again, we're still left with pretty much a blank sheet. So how can we actually get started? Well, one easy way to do it within TM is we can load models. As you can see, we can load the databases, flat files, Excel, Java, XML, but we can also load model packs. So by simply selecting the model pack, I can select PPDM 3.8 and say I'll have some of that. And these are just some examples that I've got here as available models for the demo. And again, I've got the last two models that I can add. And I can simply click OK, and straight away I've got those models in. They're available to me, and not only are they available, but we can start to use them in a project. So if we give a project name, for the target model, we'll select PPDM 3.8, and we'll click OK. So now we have a project. So quite quick and easy, we've created the project. If we want a new transform, so we actually want to move some data, we can say we'll move it from well. And we'll go to well on the target side. Oops. And we select that. And here we can see that the initial screen we get within TM. So on the left-hand side, we can see we have the source. So at the bottom here, we have the full last model. And at the top here, we have a particular element we're looking to move. On the right-hand side, you can see we have the PPDM 3.8 model with all the tables within PPDM 3.8. And at the top here, we have the particular element we're looking to move the data to, so in this case as well. So quite quickly, we can start to see and have a look around the models that we're looking at. And just to show you the last file within, like just the text editor here, we can see here's the last file, so there we have some version information. We then get onto the well information section. You can see there's a curve information section, parameters, and finally the data within that file. So at this point, we're looking at the well information section and information in that area. And we're going to move that over to the well over here in the PPDM target. By just looking at these models, we can quite quickly see, for PPDM, there's a lot of constraints on the database. So the green squares there indicate that foreign keys. So as we can start to see down the attributes, we can see there's a number of foreign keys. The hollow blue box means that they're optional, so they don't have to be populated. As we start to scroll down, we'll come to our first mandatory, saying PPDM GUID. And if we go a bit further down, we get to the UWI, which has the orange square to indicate the primary key, which evidently is also mandatory. And again, if we want to, we could start to map this information out. So within the well, we have an API. We could take the value. A simple drag and drop puts us that mapping there denoted within that center pane. So we quite quickly can start to build up, and we could drag the information over one-to-one in a quite simplistic fashion in this case to define our mappings. Evidently, once we've started to move the well to the well information, it may be that we want to move on. Evidently, within PPDM, this well is related to a whole host of things. And we can start to see here all the relationships indicated by the little right-hand or left-hand triangle, depending which way the relationship's going. We can see there's a lot of relationships to things like unit of measure, reference tables. And what we can also do within it is we can view inverse relationships. So in this case, because we're using a last file, we want to see the well log job, which is the information we want to start mapping. But we actually want to map that. We want to take some of the information out of this well section and put that into well log job. So effectively, we're taking one source table, and we want to move it into the well, and also some information into the well log job. So we do this in TM by using what we call a cascade, and basically it's a way of almost object orientating the way that we write our maps. So we've moved, in this case, say all the information we want from well to well. Now you can see here we do have a number of relationships within the well, but within TM we can create what we call a self-relationship, which allows us to stay at that same level on the source. We can drag and drop it to the target of well log job. We can right click. We can create the cascade. And you can see now that we're still in the well on the source. We're now in the well log job on the target. And again, at this point, we could start to do some mapping. So if we want to map at this point, we could click the start date and start to migrate the information again. Evidently, we want to start populating some of the keys. One thing to note is TM does handle all the foreign key setting for you, so you only need to set the primary keys. TM will set all your foreign keys for you as it goes down. It will also make sure that when it's populating that target database, it's not going to violate any of the keys. So you see quite quickly within TM, even with just a simple model pack, that you can get up to speed, start working, and start to migrate data. So what if we want to take it a bit further and say, what else can we provide in terms of developer kit? Well, what we can also do is provide information in terms of template packs that come. So if we have a look at some templates, we can have a quick look if we save all those. And if we have a look at a kind of fully built template example, then we can start to see, again, we're using the same two models, but here you can see we've got far more in terms of templating out the structure of how you're going to migrate your data. So straight away you can see we've got information here. We've got the same drag and drop kind of single value information, but we're also doing far more. And you can see here we start to use inbuilt functions, and if I do control space, we'll start to see a list. So you can start to put business logic into these, you can start to put if blocks. We can start to see procedures that we might use for reuse of code, so we can reuse them time and again. We can call out to Java methods, so we can customize Java methods, or they can be written to call out from the maps themselves and be called at runtime. And you can also see we have a vast array of inbuilt functions that allow us to carry out pretty much anything that you want to carry out, from simple string-based things like substringing it down to a limited set of characters, or whether it's things like batching, where we can actually batch information up into batches of 1,000, so it'll be batched before it's written to the database for performance. So there's a number of different things that we can do at that point. You can see here that we also have the cascades that we discussed earlier. We can view them through our cascade hierarchy. We could follow those down through here and see how they go. But we can just follow them also straight up here. We can see that we went well to well log job, populated the information. We then went down to the trip. So we're populating the third table from this well table. So we go down to the trip. We're still on well. We populate the fourth in terms of the path. You can see we come down. And at this point here, the next cascade, we're actually going to step down a little bit further on the well side. We're going to go down to the curve data. So at this point now, we're swapping over to curve data, well log curve. Again, we move the information at that level. And finally, we can get down to the actual values themselves, and we can start to move those across. So at the bottom level here of our transformations, we can see that we're actually moving the data from index value pairs from that flat file we saw earlier, and we're going to migrate those into the well-log curve value. So that quite quickly shows you how you can start to either use model packs to start to build up your transforms from a base model. And again, these model packs, you can either use the ones that we provide, or we can work with you and actually build your own model packs based on your own models, because evidently with models like PPDM, we all know that they're configured differently depending on the company that's actually implemented PPDM, 3.8 in this case. So what we can do is create you model packs that are not only hold your customizations, but they hold our enhancements, and combine that together to give you a model pack that's fully functional. And again, we can enhance the templates either with yourselves as a partner, or you can take the templates and go off and modify as you wish. But your staff, you get a lot further down the road basically by using the templates to start you off. You start to see the structure, how to create them, what to do, how to do it, all before you even start. So it gives you a good grounding in how you're going to go about doing it. As we said, we were going to look at the basics guide. So if we have a quick look, if I just scroll up to the top. So here is a PPDM data loader basics guide. So just to cover some of the customized documentation that we provide. So if we just scroll through table of contents, you can see that we started to create tutorials on loading reference data. If we go down a bit further, we'll start to see tutorials on actually loading boreholes and survey data. So again, it's directly related to the actual information that you're wanting to move and migrate, and how you migrate that, and where the issues are going to arise, and how you can solve those with the Transformation Manager. And by having the template packs available, evidently these issues are highlighted early. You can see where they are. You can actually review them before you even look at how we've solved it within TM. From a deployment side of things, getting back to the Transformation Manager, once you've actually built your maps and defined them, you can build them by clicking the Run button, or the Build button, sorry. And this will build, and what this does, in the background, it's creating a Java jar, and this Java jar can be deployed into any kind of framework that you want to deploy it into. We can see from the build that we've got here, we've got some warnings that we'll accept for now. For the purpose of the demonstration, some are against the maximum length, so evidently, in reality, we probably want to go and resolve those and work through those, but for the sake of the demo, we'll accept them now. And we can launch Transformation Manager, and this is the migrator side of things that allows us to migrate the data. So we can specify the source file, the target, which in this case is an Oracle database, and by clicking Run, we can migrate the data into that database. So here you can see now we've got some stats on the data loaded. So just from that file, it gives us some idea of exactly what's been loaded into the database and what's been updated. So that gives us a brief idea of how we could run it in terms of ad hoc execution as you're developing your maps and using those templates, how you want to execute it. You could run it from a command line. So we have a simple run transform. We can run transformation pack, so we can package the information you see there behind in the migrator into a pack. And we could run it from the command line, and again, we could schedule this to run hourly, daily, however often you want it to run. We can also deploy it into different environments. So here you can see a web-based example of the deployment. So in this case, we just have a simple web front end where we actually went in and worked alongside to fit our components into their structure as they already had it. So they don't have to have a big runtime engine. We can fit our components in around a particular system and allow them to continue their work without any changes to their own structure. So in this case, we've just mocked up a simple front end here for the web-based thing, and we can export querying again database, and we can just export a simple LAS file. So there's just a simple text version of that LAS information. And finally, what I was going to touch on, if we come back to the migrator, was when we're building these things, we also get the automatic documentation generated with it. And what this allows us to do is actually look at the structure within a HTML representation. So if I scroll down here, and we have a look in HTML docs, and if we have a look in last PPDM, if I just open up the summary to start with, then here we can start to see exactly what transforms have been created for this pack. We can have a look, we could say have a look at the trip. So here's the transform text for the trip, the assignments that have been made, and again we can navigate around, so we can navigate through it, we can see, in this case for the job, the assignments made, and we can go back up, say to the well, have a look what assignments were made, that kind of thing. So it gives us, again, another level of documentation, another level of, allowing interoperability between different users and documenting out the mapping rules that have been defined. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our brief demonstration on Transformation Manager and the functionality within it and the various model packs and templates that we provide and how we hope to start you with more than just a blank page. Any questions?
Okay, thanks very much for that, Chris. I have got a few questions come in, and I guess I'll kick off with those. Again, just to reiterate, anybody who wants to ask a question, we've got a couple of minutes, and please allow me to stick around. Apologies that we're running slightly late. That's because there's a slightly late start for some people who are having some issues getting into the WebEx. Anyway, a couple of questions. I've got can you summarize what can be customized in the dev kit? I guess I can answer that. Transformation Manager parts, essentially all of the models, the adapters that you might want preloaded, they can come, like I say, preloaded with TM, so you get a dev kit with all of the connectivity that you need, and also customizations of the models. I had another question asking about extending models that are in the model pack. Again, you're able to, once you have the models with TM, you are able to extend them. I might hand that question over to Chris as well. But just to finish, in terms of customizing, you're able to also have a set of pre-built projects that come with Transformation Manager. So you get the models, the connectivity, if you like. You also get a head start in terms of a baseline set of mappings. And also other areas of customization can include, we can customize the user guide, or you can. All of these customizations are essentially available to yourself as well as us to help you put these kind of customizations together. And I guess finally on deployment, that's another area that can be customized. You can choose however which way you might want the transformations to be deployed. And again, you can either do this yourself and set whatever front end, whether it be a web front end or service-orientated architecture around the use of these transforms. So just hope that answers the customization bit. In terms of the extending the models, I don't know, Chris, if you had anything you'd like to add on that?
Yep, the models can be extended, so evidently there are different ways of doing that. You can extend them within the tool itself, so you can add new elements, you can add attributes to elements, you can add relationships to elements, and again that can be useful in many respects in terms of defining relationships with more detail than they sometimes come within models. So you can certainly customize it like that. Again, with the model packs, we can actually customize it for you, so we can combine your own models, or whether it's yourselves or whether it's ETL, or we can combine your own models with any specific customizations we have. So, for instance, just to cover that, within PPDM, we have tables, or I'll show you the procedure. So, we have a table called detailed common goals, because within PPDM 3.8, what you see is if we just take application, somewhere in here we've got all those created row chains, and they occur in all the elements within PPDM. So by grouping these in a common element, we can actually just have one procedure that sets that based on some business logic. And by doing it that way, we can actually use that set common calls in every thousand call, so rather than having to set row changed or row created depending on different if conditions everywhere. We can call that procedure at the top of every transform that we want to use it in, and that will set those functions for us. But again, we can customize these for you. We can actually customize procedures to work with your own variations. Say, take PPDM 3.8 as an example, then your own variations on PPDM 3.8, we can absolutely customize procedures to your models as you require, or you can actually customize it yourself beyond that, or you can continue to customize it beyond that. In terms of the models themselves, what I was thinking of there was you can actually update the model. So say the last file here, I mean, if there were changes to that, so say if the structure changes somehow, then we can actually use change model, and we can load in a new model. So as long as we've got those models there, then we can swap it over quite quickly to a new model and use that new model. Evidently, when we build it, TM will report anywhere where the mappings are invalid because that no longer exists, say, in the source model because of the changes made. So models can be changed in that quite quickly. Again, you could do the same for PPDM 3.8, so that revision upgrade. And you don't have to really do all the mapping. All you've got to do is put the change model, swap it to say PPDM 3.9, which I think is out in alpha. And you can evidently then when you build it, it'll tell you if any of the mappings are off, and you can just tweak the little bits that you need to tweak or use the enhancement that I'm sure will be available in PPDM 3.9.
Okay, thanks very much. Another question was what domains do our templates cover? Domain, and I guess I can answer that. Typically we aim to have at least a version 1 to cover well header, borehole and trajectory loading and export. That's what we typically try to aim to have as a template mapping. So for example, we're just working through the WITSML PPDM group who are actually tasked with building a standard set of mappings between WITSML and PPDM, and we'll be covering those items certainly as version 1, and things like we might have a more comprehensive template for things like we're currently doing a little bit of mapping between using again the PPDM standard mapping specification between 3.7 and version 3.8 of PPDM. So again, our template will be more extensive in that instance. But yeah, I hope that answers that question for you. I've got another question. Sorry about this. I won't be a second. Another question was, can you reuse our SQL? So I'm assuming that will be SQL code that they've written themselves. Or
you can call out to perform the input functions from SQL within TM, and you can also call out using Java. So you can call out to using Java, and from Java you can call out to your SQL. So you can still use that within it. I guess to some degree, you've got to be aware of what you're doing if you're calling, I don't know what the SQL commands you're going to call behind the scenes are, but evidently if you're performing SQL on, say, the target behind, or while transformation manager is also migrating, then, you've got to be aware of what you're doing at that point, I guess, because that potentially could have issues, but yeah, you can certainly call out and call any SQL you want. So, and you can also do it from TM. So if you want to call lookups from within TM, then you have a lookup functionality for things like that. So in here you create a new lookup, and you can query, in this case, either external or the target model, and you can actually query in a database to find particular values. So you can do things through lookups as well. So there's potentially, I guess, 3 ways there of different ways of having SQL called from within TM.
Okay. I guess we've now probably run to the extent of the webinar. I know there's a couple more outstanding questions. We will get back to those that have asked those questions post-event, and we will be placing the pre-recording up on our website, but also I'll send it out to anybody who would like it. So just drop me a quick note in the chat box if you'd like a copy of the recording. And again, thank you very much for taking part. I hope you got something useful out of it. I know it was really to give you a bit of an overview of how Transformation Manager could potentially be extended to meet customized requirements by users or clients. And obviously give you a bit of a feel for what we think makes the best kind of data movement dev kit. And we haven't got everything out of the box complete yet with TM, and I'm not sure we ever will, because there's always going to be new things coming out and new templates or new domains or whatever. But yeah, we are starting to build these templates that will be shipped with TM, along with improved connectivity and user documentation and tutorials and so on. But what we can do is also work with you to customize everything about the Transformation Manager capability. So, it can be quicker to value for those users that need to build these kind of data-loaded data connectors. Anyway, once again, thanks, Chris. Thanks very much for taking part, and look forward to hopefully catching up with you post-event. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.